So
You guys get taxed.
that building, so it's going to be like a mixed use. So for you guys, you're just looking at the zoning portion.
Okay.
For me, I'm the zoning administrator and the appraiser. So keeping that separate as the appraiser on that, it's a mixed use. So yes, there will be business in as a garage
Okay.
part of it, and that land portion, because he's doing that special use. Special use versus doing zoning district.
That would be the whole property.
Right. Or a certain portion.
So you have special use and supplemental. Special use
Special
in the
use.
C. C-U-P-S-E-C?
There's so, yeah,
Conditional.
conditional use, we don't have any of those yet, but, anything that we do, solar or wind or anything like that, that would require more conditions,
It's a conditional use.
it's special use permits are, if it fits with the intent of the current zoning district. So there are certain special use permits within each district.
I'm sorry to get that.
So if you notice that in all of the zoning districts, there's a section for use, and then they'll have like a special use portion, and then it'll give you a list of the special uses about district.
That's not good.
Yeah.
I read that one.
Packets for review. Sometimes you will get the doing it after the fact. No, like trying to get moving. So, yeah. Right? It's right.
I'm just trying to see what's actually on there.
The enforcement grants tricky.
See, it's part of
Yeah.
one of these.
How long is your people? Is that it?
Yeah, right there, right?
Maybe I can't plug it into my computer.
Yeah.
But it's not to maybe switch seats.
Does it fit there?
Oh, wait.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, see what I will do. I'll just bring that. So never mind. We've got a really long board. Perfect.
Okay.
I've got some stuff, yeah. I brought some stuff. I brought some stuff to the NEC. Fence.
It would be interesting too, because I think Jonathan might have some stuff. He didn't email me anything.
just went through like that today. I know I haven't, but I was like, so I should do it. I should do it on I don't even know where they're talking about where this thing at. Is there way up they do? There's no like, because I've heard down by the area, that's all I've heard. That's all the information that's out there. They have agreements with landowners, right? So they have an idea for it.
Yeah, we've got leases and I put them on a map.
Yeah. It's so nice. Is there a way to get that out?
Yeah, upstairs it's huge.
Oh, you got it.
Let's get it.
What's the one that's been-
Here.
I don't, the needs of this one's
Yeah.
Mr. Lake?
no.
Mom said, when the schedule this one, he would make it, so.
I'm Jason. So John.
So that's age. Is it really been that long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 24. It's been 4 weeks. Everybody really fast.
2 days. Changed our plans, got back an hour. So it's still part of it. You know what I mean? Who's right?
It's-
Who's right? Because, obviously, it depends on where you are in the house on this.
Yeah. I had an issue with that. Just south of one negative, 4 inches. Yeah, that was long.
Okay, we have one conference today. Section.
12, no, the 12,
Yeah.
page 12.
Yeah, no, mine is also.
Yeah.
Maybe, I got some stuff I want to share, maybe I can share that.
Yeah.
Things that we talked about last time.
Mhm.
Went back and did some research on some definitions and some of the fencing. So I got some stuff here I can share. Okay, I can't download the code, but this is where it talks about art scale. Talks about size of megawatts. There's not a lot in the code about it, but it does address the fence here. It talks about access to the supply station shall be restricted in accordance with 110.31 with hazardous markings in accordance with 110.21. This is so wall, screen, or fence, access to which is controlled by locks or through means shall be considered the excessive part of this type of portion of so the requirement basically is that the fence is going to have to be 7 foot in height, or a combination of 6 foot or fence fabric and 1 foot of extension utilizing strings or equipment. So that's going to be something that NEC is going to require. You know, we talked about what kind of fence, are we going to have a fence?
Is that only around the substation or the transfer, the inverters and things like that?
That'd be over around everything, around the whole place. What I understand. Yeah.
What might kind of block I just was looking at electrical installations.
Right. And it talks about in a ballroom or closet or area surrounded by wall screens as control with knobs. So it means that's what I qualify. So they have another section that calls indoor outdoor, but if you go back to access to the PV electric supply station shall be restricted. Now, this is I'm looking at this is everything. That's my interpretation now. And I brought up another project. This is a lab proposed project. I took all the project information off here. This is a 159 megawatt unit. You can probably guess where it's at. Yeah, just a little bit. So this would be fence. This is considered setback. So I believe it's required for NEC to keep people out. Whether it's substations or whether it's modules or whatever.
NEC is.
That's National Electrical Code. And they don't really get too far into the weeds on much else, you know? They just say, distance to allow parts, you know, this is probably have to be 10 foot away from the heat, so. And then you would have to have lots. So I wanted to, we talked about the definition. So basically it goes, so this is your,
Sorry, if I might interrupt.
Yeah.
Are you moving on from the fence?
yeah, we can just go back to the fence. Yeah.
Well, I just had a, so essentially we need to just put in here, rather than requiring specific, just need to reference the code, NEC code, and all, everything will adhere to NEC.
That's strictly to keep people out. If there's other things as far as fencing that needs to go above and beyond for other reasons, that's going to be the bare minimum, I believe. And then the permeable fence is just going to be a fence that's going to have to be the same height, but it's going to have to have some larger openings for so it's not so tight as a chain link. Yeah, that's,
7-foot fence is going to restrict deer traffic, which is really going to
yeah.
affect the land, you know, the neighboring landowners wherever it goes.
So this is Douglas County. So this is what they had as their wildlife friendly fencing. So it's just a little bit bigger, and I don't know whether they leave a 16-inch opening at the bottom. The other meat of it, yeah, something like that. From what I understand, that's actually more cost effective to develop. It's probably something like that.
But the way I was reading another part was that the fence had to be 7 foot high with
It
the
will.
barbed wire across the top. They're not going to build a barbed wire fence 7 feet high.
I don't think it has to be barbed wire. Let's see what it is.
It's at 7 feet, or if it's not 7, if it's 6, then it has to have something like barbed wire. To make it 7, you have to be at least 7 feet.
7 feet in height or a combination of 6 foot or more of fence, fabric, and a 1 foot extension utilizing 3 or more strands of barbed wire.
Yeah. That's going to be tough to do with wildlife.
Yeah, and I think that maybe this is what they're thinking here. Maybe the bottom. I'm not sure.
I mean, a legal fence is 14 to 16 inches off the ground. I mean, so
Yeah.
that's a legal fence. The lowest strand has to be, that can't be any higher than 16 inches to be a legal fence.
Okay, maybe that's why that's 16 inches.
That's the minimum it has to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I move pretty quickly, so.
And I don't want to give a forward report tonight because I just got back from the propose it, but I went up to, as I mentioned at our meeting 2 weeks ago, I went up to Cedar Rapids last week. And I don't have a forward report. This is a picture of the fence, which looks exactly like so this is going to go north there. Setting the
Just one flag, right?
yeah, there you go. Yeah, analyze all of those. Sorry. But yeah, I went.
That was on the inside or on the outside?
I was outside the fence. For the record.
published wildlife friendly large smooth wire fence. This is a permanent fence. Probably looking at something that's actually installed already.
I'm right about 6 feet tall, so it's obviously the camera is not sitting on it.
Right.
It's a little below that, so my visual is that's about 7 feet. So I didn't need the I think. I don't remember it going
Yeah, Logan-Mar probably wouldn't.
Yeah, and I've looked there through that's Cedar County. I looked through their regulations, and they have some pretty strict regulations up there as far as to like so many acres. Just period, they like to know more than so many acres. That's how they count it. So their setbacks for this one. Their setbacks. I've actually got a count.
Right. You need to put 7 foot mark like this here. Tank up all the time. So that makes it, and the higher criteria of property, affected property owners. Natural travel, use, disruption.
That one is like solid block, so.
Yeah, so basically, if you look at this, these are a bunch of modules or solar panels put together, and then you have a string, which would be 26 to 28 solar panels that are tied together as one circuit. And they go back to a combiner box, which would be something like this.
Go back to that.
Sure, sorry.
We were so on board at wildlife.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Apologies.
It'll be fun.
You zoom right in on
What I wanted to see, okay, so you said, so property, I think is the fence line?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously this would be a wildlife corridor through here.
It's also a road.
Right, which is also a road. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
could bounce
yeah.
through that, because it's not 24 highway. So, there's another.
Really, those are more easements,
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta watch the paint. Watch the paint.
That's a solid block. This is not a corner
Well, there's not gonna be anything inside of it because they can't get inside.
Right.
Right, yeah, but there's a corner, this is, there's a corner right here. And, that's another fence line. So this is a solid.
Yeah, that's got fence all around it.
Solid.
Yeah, but those are easements, where you have your power lines and your road water and utilities or roads or railroad tracks. I mean, any of those things.
I just think that that's something to consider. Is that you have a lot of landowners that own their land specifically for land. They're disruptive. I'm just speaking out loud.
Sure.
Because I didn't realize that that's all
So this section is forward, we're all going to forward, more frequent. These two blocks.
And I think in Douglas County it references about there's some wildlife corridors that have to be recognized by the, to where I don't know what actually designates it.
Just like that, I mean, it's probably not high wildlife area.
Yeah, it's all problem. Yeah.
You could be 320.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's like,
This question before we move on.
I think is that,
It's 159.
so. Well, close, we're looking at 2,000.
I think on average you can figure 10 acres per megawatt.
That's what I've seen.
Yeah. So this would be 15, 1600 acres.
This one.
Right. It's a rule of thumb. It doesn't count anything. It's just like an actual locked areas. So I was going to talk about those definitions just a smidge.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of finish up on that, so yeah, go ahead.
So if you take this and look at this area here, you have the modules, which are the solar panels, and then they put in rows, and then about every 26 to 28 modules, you want to have a string or a circuit, which they all tie together, and they go back to an EC combiner. And everyone's a little bit different how they run it underground, or they do a cab system and place it in. You'll have some wiring and stuff through here, and then what happens is these go underground typically either from a central point, or they'll come from these DC combiners underground over to this medium voltage AC combiner, medium voltage transformer. And on a large scale, I'll show you. I got a cut sheet of what that looks like, and that's what we're producing noise. And then, so if you have a module, then you have a string of 26 to 28, and then this is considered a row. Okay, and then this would be considered an array, and then this would be considered, like this green would be a block. So this is the inverter space. This is just industry standards or how they reference it. And then you have the medium voltage feeder, which is this red line that goes underground, and it goes all the way back to the substation. So those are really the different components if you want to line up with the industry standard. So, and then this piece. So this is, and I couldn't find any dB on here. This is probably what we're looking at as far as a skid mounted. All the DC is going to come into here, and they're going to invert it, and they're going to combine it, and they're going to transform it all in one skid. And this is probably what's going to be your noisemaker, but is what they're going to try to do, which makes sense, is they're going to try to locate these things within the center of the farm or whatever, so that way it's not going to be out here on the edge. So if you're talking, I think I measured this was, I have a setback. Feet. I don't think this county is like 500 feet, so I don't know if that's property line to the residents. So that's all I really want to share. The other thing I was going to ask about, just to go back on the agrivoltaic, with the pollinators and the grass is not a big deal. I was wondering if there's something in that language that has to be the primary use of the land, or since it would be not a primary use if there's some kind of liability there. You know, these big developers have attorneys, right? And so they can come back and say, "Oh, that's why this because of competition." I was going to look to see if there's anything.
That was what, in my opinion, I wanted to avoid,
Yeah.
of it being classified as that instead of
Right.
industrial production. And then
Tax
for tax purposes.
That's all I got. The other stuff I forgot because they did talk about, emergency egress in the code. I was reading it in my book, but they do talk about emergency evac safety plan, NEC. But basically, it says it's supposed to be provided for review, and typically it's the fire marshal or fire having jurisdiction to approve that plan as a condition. So it doesn't really say what it has to be. It just has to be submitted with engineering drawings. It's kind of like the fence. They're not going to say what kind of fence you have to have. They're going to say this guy has to have a fence. It's up to the engineering drawings to spell that out. And then I also saw something about the layer study. I don't know if you guys have talked about that.
Very briefly.
So there's layer studies out there that we can write in there to require to where they know where these basically every panel that moves is going to go from east to west. And the sun, they know where the sun's at, so they have studies out there that can say, well, on this road from this mile marker to this mile marker between December 10th and December 20th, you're going to have a layer. And so they know we need to put a screen here to make sure we're not really missing. So there is an avenue that we probably need to be writing in there. Yeah. Right.
So all those fields that they're all going to do.
Yeah, they're probably all going to move. They get more energy that way.
Yeah, so like line 6, said this one. And so in the summertime, right now, the sun comes up here, comes around, and then it goes back down. So at about 4 o'clock, you start to lose productivity. In the wintertime, anything that they're set to where you try to catch some of those, average throughout the year. But in the wintertime, when the sun's over here, catch it, it's for sure.
Probably you're probably facing primarily south. The fixed ones are usually south. The more the ones that move south.
So the definitions, do we want to go back to the solar model or make that law?
Yeah, that option needs to be law.
I don't have any problem with that, 'cause I don't know any good.
And there's some other changes in there too, like usually the block is what's connected to the inverter. I can go back. I'm not spending my time on that. I can go back and make some notes on that. It's not information I'll share with you in a few minutes.
Not right this second,
Yeah.
or next
I
workshop,
can do that,
then
yeah.
we'll go back and look at those, the array definitions.
It's right how it should be.
Right, so
Yeah.
then just bring that.
Okay.
And compose it.
Yeah, we don't have to argue about it, we just
Right.
figure out what it is.
Okay. That sounds good.
If you will, you-
Yeah, of course.
And then obviously each system might be different. So the rotation might be, those look similar to this model. That basically
still take one. It's got a lot of things.
Right, yeah.
You see motors in there?
Is this, road, the road here, you see the middle, all the collision, the road right behind it, and there's this, they had, this connector piece between each other, each half of the road before they get it. That from the road, and then the western road, so sending back from the subdivision, sending back from the next road. These were, this is what one's in Lane County, that's right. So it's, I want to capture some of the weeds on it. Reference, so you can see this front. So it's on some night, because I didn't inside the fence, and farmer's farm. So I took her down to the end of the road, look down. It appears that what it is, sometimes up it's going to be like this, facing the line. And then it will rotate like this, basically until the sun, yeah, so to speak. So it's really big. So
is that reputation for that like a computer program, or is it actually chasing something?
It's good data acquisition. They've got wind sensors, temperature sensors, and they've got basically back at the rack. I forgot to remember this data acquisition. They'll run fiber out too. And on a lot of these big ones, they'll have these little motors that power to batteries that are connected to Wi-Fi that are just spread out there. Some of the smaller ones, they'll have one big axle that runs all the way through it, like one motor in front and then one axle all the way across, and so they all tilt at the same time. But when they put individual motors on there, when they do tilt them all at the same time, then sometimes they get the shadow effect. So what they try to do is they try to tilt this one, to where it won't cast the shadow, maybe tilt this one a little more than this one so they don't get the shadow, and then with individual motors. And they all run on batteries.
It's all the time, so it's not like somebody can sit there and change it as something's changing.
As the sun moves, they move.
So it's all programmed.
Yep, exactly.
So can you add something like for weather? Like you can do something different than the weather to be upside down?
They won't go upside down.
And it takes all day long for them to rotate from one side to the other, and they probably spend all night long in the back.
Just so everyone knows, Kate, I will email you these photos. I wasn't able to do that because we had a problem. So that way we can put them on the screen so that everyone can see them. As well as our two staff members who are here tonight. So we might want to include then some sort of wording that incorporating the National Electric Code.
I mean, that's going to have to be followed. I think it's in there already. I think there's something reference about this. You can just read it if you see anything already on it. based on the feedback and probably feasibility, the biggest thing is going to be, biggest pushback is probably going to be the setbacks. That's probably where the big push is going to be.
So,
Yeah.
So anywhere it talks about fencing, it's on page 11, section 9. It's not. If we just add in somewhere in there, all fencing will follow the NEC standards or whatever.
oh, page 9. I'm not getting it, like,
There, 9.
I just said,
Yeah, that's the same stuff on it. That's kind of, right? It talks about the corridors. Smooth wires from top and bottom, strings and roll wire. Okay, and then that goes into your thing, Chris. Talks about a lot of some fencing not utilized initially, a lot like corridors, including escape corridors, maybe require areas for grass fires and flood.
so, needs to be, so,
In A, I put it in A as required by state, local, federal regulation, and that kind of captures it. Because I'm sure there's a fire safety code. We're talking about grass fires, and it's not just the UC. They're not really addressing where it needs to be or where the entrances, exits. They're just saying it needs to be.
The definitions of wording, they don't.
that's not the being fence, change. That's not the list of fence. This is what I'm saying, is maybe. It's really,
Okay.
maybe it should just say shall makes sense.
This kind of covers it, really. It doesn't say specifically NEC, but it also says federal regulations
Right.
that they have to be followed. So,
There may be another code out there that requires something that it's just
because that's not specified, it's just all of them. So maybe
And then maybe take that R2 back to, take out May and put R2, right? Maybe, I don't know, that's what you're trying to do.
If you want to move in May.
Let me see what I need to find out, right? I don't think that's dictated by the federal government. I don't think I could be wrong, but I think it's like in the Federal Electricians Association, it comes up with the city. I think, but I'm not.
That's the same as fire. They don't know the life safety law.
But it would still be a local, state, federal.
And if the county adopts a certain code, a certain year, right, they would fall into that.
Going back to that page 5, for purposes of this regulation, the following are the initial codes and operator zones are required to follow. Current version of the IBC, the National Fire Code, and NEC. Go over your meeting, just kind of highlight the points that these guys have questions about. So that's just where we finish.
Checking steps. 60 feet, 500 feet. Measure the property line. Around existing residence. the NEC is going to dictate how deep the lines have to be and all that stuff. So,
Not to, so we have to go back through this line by line, it's just that they have specific things that they want to talk about, which I think it has, but otherwise, we've already gone through this.
yeah.
Just follow next tomorrow.
Yeah,
So the biggest thing that I see is the overall fact that we're making an agreement that's based on one project. So I think that, if we say, if we say because if we're looking at, if there was no project proposed, right? We're saying we're just making regulations. We wouldn't be making the regulations saying we're going to make it to where we're only allowing solar farming. And so I think that's just a little bit confusing to me because there's an outfit in the room that wants to come in and build it. So as a commission, I would think that we want to say, okay, here, this is what we expect. These are general parameters, just like building a house or just like developing land, You can say that there's just one person that can do it or we can only allow. So that's one thing, and then I know that there's a lot of feedback that needs to be addressed on the setbacks, right? And there is a level of, from what I've gathered, there's a level of feasibility that's associated with this, right? Is it worth the cost? Do we want to make it to where it's feasible to build something like this? Or do we want to make it to where we don't want it to be feasible, and therefore we're going to make it to where it's very hard to build? Those are not my questions to answer. I guess that's just what I'm bringing up, thinking about. I've heard that Shawnee County is developing regulations with, it's not been done yet, but they're basically saying that they're limiting everything to 240 acres. So you know that. Well, that pretty much limits any type of large scale. So it should, because it has to be feasible, because as you can see from the layout, they have to bring lines, there has to be a substation, there's infrastructure, there's cost associated. So it has to make sense. So those are the two things. I think that we build regulations, I think that they're smart, but I do think that based on the feedback, we have to really consider if we're trying to make it to where it's, that you hear what I'm saying.
yeah, I think that my whatever to that is that what this county wants, is large scale. This county's negative county, and so that's why we limited it to one project, that's why we limited the acres that we're not interested in being covered with solar.
Right.
If we can develop regulations that work and somebody wants to follow them and they want to do it, then that's where we go. But I don't know that, I personally don't want to write it to where it's encouraged. I just think it can happen if it's done correctly.
Right.
I mean, then we talk about feedback and setbacks and things like that, but most of the feedback is coming from individuals who are for the project.
Right. And that's probably not our charge to decide, right? I mean,
Ultimately it is.
well,
We decide
what the regulations are.
what goes on in the town.
Right.
Just like, a special use permit for a convenience store.
Yeah.
We did that.
But we couldn't limit a special use permit to numbers. Is what I'm saying. You know, I think
But this is going to, I mean,
you know, we could say, well, you can only gonna allow one car. Yes.
so and that's where I go with doing the limited scale solar projects instead of commercial. Is because when the commercial takes up 2,000-3,000 acres or whatever, well, that's, I don't think we have room in this county to put them all over the place.
Right.
So, but the limited scale, which we have in cities,
Right.
I can see those, the 20 acre sites, having an unlimited number of those. And those stay local, the power stays local.
Like co-op, free state.
Right, so whatever. You know, they would contract with individual landowners to do 20 acres.
Well, the free state is capped on there. So
Yeah,
can't
I'm
make-
suggesting.
Yeah, can't make-
We're just talking example.
basically it's anybody that's behind the meter. Anybody behind the meter. Set on the other side of the meter. Right. Unless you have, a landowner that's going to invest how much it is to put a solar farm there. You're not using near enough power to offset the cost to get any of that back. So the only thing that everybody that benefits is those entities that are behind the meter, the free states, owners, revenues. Like, for example, a large scale solar would be perfect for a municipality who owns their behind the meter. They use enough power to offset all that. So you're talking about utilities still, right? Because you have to be able to use enough power to justify building something. Unless you have something that draws a lot of power, you're not gonna, there's no value to put solar, because you're not going to get paid just millions of dollars for excess that goes on that grid. So it makes sense, but I think that there's some economic things there.
Right, and I think it's just that, I mean, I don't want to have one company come in and dictate what goes on there. It's all,
Right,
we're just the low hanging fruit.
right.
And I think that with recent changes this last week, and we still have any, the Secretary of Ag, but disincentivizing we're not much out there. So,
The way it sounds, it has to be large enough to where it's feasible for the utility to build it if we want. Is it a good thing? I mean, I think it's probably a good thing, but it's not, I want to take away from what the county is, but also if it's, or even to bring it back to 2000. I don't know what the right answer is, but those are the two things that I struggle with. Is the limiting it to one. You know, I just don't know if we can even do that. Can we do that? I suppose we could, but I don't even know if that's something that this board can rightfully do. I don't know. Research it. We could do that with gas station. You could say, well, we're going to allow one, and we're only going to allow it this big, and we're only going to allow any more. I mean, it's a different scale.
we could, but we would choose to do so.
It must be a county council question. We will find it. do some research. So
It goes
we're
back
not
to
legal
this,
authorities.
how many people want to just open the door?
Right.
I don't.
Tough question.
Personally, yet to be convinced that large scale solar is feasible or efficient. If it wasn't subsidized, we would really have to. And so I'm just not willing to sacrifice our county. I mean, if we can do it, and we'll make it beneficial to us,
Right.
but I don't think putting 20,000 acres of solar panels over this county is beneficial to
Right.
I think that there's plenty of places in this country where large scale solar should be put.
Well, then there was other things that, I read in the Cedar regulations where they had stipulations say, well, if land produces so much, it would qualify to be available for taking out ag, to basically taking out ag, for development. And so, I think there are also the landowner, right? That, there's obviously the landowners in this county that want it because they have financial benefit. Right? There's a lot of people who probably don't because they don't, or for whatever reason. So, if it's, is there a threshold that says this is an agriculture county, so therefore land that produces this much, there's a measurement there, right?
But in Jackson County, we don't have it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We don't have so but it's,
Or we have a lot of grass.
and that's just what I, as a producer, I look at is we feed the world. And if we continue to take land, I understand private property. If you want property, this is what you want to do it. And you'll make more money than farm, better, raising cows or whatever. But we're taking land out day by day. How are we going to feed the world in 20 or 30 years? And that's what I'm selling on this project. Is 30 years to tear it out. And you have to be convinced that how much you figure out. You check out maybe grasslands, and it says it's going to be protected until let the soil grass to protect it for 30 years. Or maybe grassland does, if you take it out of it, you can never put it back. So, I mean, I struggle with a lot of the other side of this, and not so much, it's just the actual project is just.
Right. Because there are benefits, right, to the receiving those benefits to the county.
Obviously, the increase in taxes, whatever, and at what cost.
Right.
At the same time, but obviously, K-State and all the other land grant institution, all over the country, their counterparts in other parts of the world have been doing research on crop yields, for generations, and those yields are, as far as the engineered yields, what they engineer at the level of seed companies, how much did one seed actually produce in yield. That number keeps going up. And everyone's seen the signs on the highway since we were born. One farm, one Kansas farmer, one Iowa farmer feeds that number keeps
national
going up.
number is smaller than it was when they do what we're producing more. But at some point, that's gonna peak because it still takes land to do that. And if you remove that, you can only be so good without, farming, throw more commercial fertilizer in it. That's what a lot of people are against as well. Yeah. So, I think we made tremendous advances. So far. Without, that's not true.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah,
talk to your point about, obviously we still need farming. It's going to be way, I don't know, criticize anybody, in this country, and some other people spend a lot on ag subsidies because farming is not a guaranteed profit occupation for inputs. But you're not all over control farming. You're all over possibly another venues, shall we say,
yeah.
or corporations.
Which I don't like those subsidy programs either.
So
I think they're used.
So, and I've also heard that, over the years, we had such, just from the national security aspect of it, we have a very centralized grid system. That's one of the things with solar is to do more distributed, right? So that way, if something happens, yeah, it's a long-term goal, but that was one of the reasons that it makes sense from that perspective too. So there's a lot of different moving parts to that. Just talking about it.
Well, it's like, I understand putting windmills in an area with the windmills on. But why wouldn't you want to put solar panels in an area where the sun shines longer? In the desert, if nothing else grows, why don't they put them all there? That's just what I struggle with. Why take out?
Well, the proximity to Jeffrey probably has a lot to do with it. They gotta have time for it, right? So, I don't know what the situation that there's a lot of panels in Arizona, but how it's configured and all that stuff. I noticed that they're putting a lot of solar farms near where substations
But
are at.
that's obvious. It's cheaper infrastructure. I get that. But at what cost is what I think.
part of it, obviously, there's not a whole lot of users of electricity. And most of them have it, or most of it is all concentrated in certain cities. But there's even bigger use, obviously, on the west coast and as you go east. We're kind of the edge of the population, actually, density actually starts increasing. East in this country. So, I think that as you go east from here, in some areas it gets a little more cloudy. There's less sun. There's less sunlight. You go west, it's Kansas. As you go west, you get more sunlight. Hours.
It's cheaper.
Right.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
Big facilities, they develop east sides.
But it's a way of life.
Yeah.
We're getting pushed out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be, I think that it's always a lot better than wind. Just because of the variation. As far as the wildlife. Maybe there's some shadows all of a sudden you hear about.
The life's like,
Yeah.
When we have the solar, that's a topic on our
Yeah.
and I believe that this discussion just kind of leads us to believe to understand where each other is.
Yeah. It's a dilemma, for sure. It lies underneath.
First time we talked about this, that's how I started.
Yeah.
Private property rights
Harmony is not, well, or Rancho, they're not, more than the other, but there's special programs for these two types of enterprises. And a lot of times farmers, or a member of the family has to work off the farm because the farm is not producing enough for the family to live off of, or the income is goodness. So they're trying to even that a little bit.
Well, I don't disagree.
Probably connected to that property rights issue.
I don't disagree.
So you already found that balance. Trying to do with these.
It's just that that benefits a small portion of the population, but it affects the entire county. In one area, whether it's positive there, but it does. So,
Where's the balance?
yeah. And that's where I think that comes with the limitations. You allow it to happen if it's feasible, but you put a limit on it so that it affects less.
Yeah, I'd like to just check to see how that limiting it to one is that something that
Well, that was actually what we had, the commission was sent in this draft, and started, we didn't change it.
we
2000, it was 2008. It didn't say anything about one.
Yeah, that's the one I wonder.
It was just 2000, that was the cap.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I was just can
We just said, I think, so that there wasn't 1,000, not there 1,000. It was one project. And that was 2,000.
okay, that makes more sense.
That it wasn't one in Denison and one soldier or whatever.
So it's written now to where if they build a 2,000 out and then 20 years later, 10 years later, 5 years later, somebody comes in and wants to build another 2,000, it's just, see, that's
They can add to that program. It says in there that if the conditions are right, that can be larger.
see, I think that's where the problem with me is that even something that other, this is really not a regulation, it's just a regulation for this project. I don't know anyway.
What we're comfortable with as a county. How much of this county are we willing to?
Maybe you can scan that map for yourself. See where it's at.
Well, that's not really, the map is showing lease orders, like who signed leases, it's, there's not,
Not a layout, but you can kind of get an idea.
it's who signed leases.
Well, and that's also, we're not supposed to, I mean, yes, that's out there, that's not. We're in regulations, this project doesn't. I mean, if they call tomorrow and say we're moving out, we still have to break these regulations, because in 5 years there may be another one. So, that part of it comes down to the special use permit. Get all their ducks in a row and come back and say, okay, we can meet these regulations where it is.
Number of acres that we've talked about, 2,000 is about around half of 1% of the entire area of the county. So it's not small, but it's not.
It's not large, but that's the other thing.
It's not.
This county is a lot of small portions. There's not, I mean, it's not Pot County that has sections after sections of contiguous, of contiguous acres. It's a lot of 14 acres, different landowners. So it affects more people, and that's why I say there's places that it could not affect very many, but there are fewer.
But it was
Was it?
Question was only about that. At the moment, no questions about the intersections. Do we know if, I can make a guess here, but what from the authority, do we know if the code is going to make any trips? Do you know? I'm thinking, what the research that you want to do?
Definitions.
Yeah, definitions and some of the research that you want to do.
Yeah.
I need to go ahead and write out some information and get the photos taken so she can have them and display them. At the moment, do we have any, we have a June?
We don't have anything on the schedule for June other than the regular meeting on the 12th.
And we've got time for doing that after that, because we're in years.
Right. Right. So, yeah, so then we need to maintain our current schedule when we set a work session for 2 weeks after that, which was June 26th. Would be perfect. 26th. I think we're at our limit for tonight. I guess that's my sense. Until we get some more information.
It'll be a good questions. You guys have done any discussions during this we have a lot of stuff in there. And I guess I realized at the end of the year, is there a way that there's that they can be protected from storms? There's something that we need to be storm rates, or the things. Is everything going and everything is
It's not amazing if there's some theoretically they would have insurance and then replace those damaged panels and whether they're damaged or they sometimes can't, they just stop working on it. Yeah.
and to know if there's other options out there to help some of the residents.
I haven't seen
Like
anything.
the bigger hills over there on the side of the county, wind is not normal. Talking about hail, we had some of those from the year, everybody had, we need a lot of it.
And I would say that's some of what we try to have to protect the neighborhood. If something happens to that and it blows over on the neighbor, how do you want to
That might be something that look into insurance. What are insurance policy for? So I'm sure it's something.
well,
That's on that.
They're gonna have insurance. Well, it's not gonna be yours. These have a little more, I think it was 2,400 PA.
See,
I don't know who has my number, but I just got a bunch of text messages from somebody. Just thought I would let you know you do not have a proper form for me. So all this other stuff, we are having a discussion. We are not making,
Just have a work session.
This is the work
Yeah.
session, this is the work
we're not,
session.
we're not voting, we're not making it official. It's not a quote.
Yeah, obviously it's someone watching
Well, I don't know.
TV.
Somebody,
This is the work session, there is no quorum required for a work session because no vote can be taken. No vote can be taken if this was a regular meeting. This would not be a quorum, that's correct. If this is a regular meeting, so no vote can be taken if this is a regular meeting, proceed or something.
There's a lot of, I didn't know if it was live or recorded. But either way, somebody got my number. And
I didn't even
we,
know that.
none of our work sessions are official votes. We can vote on whether or not we want it, you know, because that's just,
Right.
if if 5 of us think that it should say one thing and 4 think the other, or 2, what,
We're talking about, tonight, we talked about coming back with some definitions, and we just talked about theory.
Yeah. And nothing is official. This isn't. So I
This
don't.
is still a work in progress. Everything's
I just wanted to
completely.
out the open.
And just so you guys know, we don't give out friendly letters
I know, yeah.
or emails.
Right. No,
That's why I blind copy everybody.
Because we have, we said people that are paying attention.
I guess they're trying to keep us away from.
That's right. Yes.
It's a work session, so it's not an official meeting. But it is open to the public. That's
It is, yes. Okay, so my next work session is June 26th, so I guess you'll do what you need to do with that date, to inform people who are and are not here. Did everyone who is here hear that we have our next work session on the draft solar regulations will be June 26th, same time we start our work session, which is 6 p.m.
Next meeting's packet.
That's now.
No.
No, that's me. Oh, it's got my name on it.
Is that you? I did give you the right
I'm
one.
not muted on it, so.
But only till this. Come on, one.
I mean,
You haven't done your full time.
Started.
Finish what you started.
What's a appeal?
Yeah.
Like a variance or. That's what it is. Yeah.
And the annual meeting is going
Or if somebody, if there's a decision that I need to make, they can, if it's my decision.
Call the order. Roll call. Adopted whatever, and then adjourn. A vote to adjourn.
Minutes? Yeah, well, maybe, possibly.
Sending back.
That could change. Next Tuesday, that could change, but I'm just putting it on there because essentially, that was the last I was sure.
It's a question.
Oh.
So it's just
This is not a meeting, so there is no way to adjourn.
right.
We'll see you next time.
Sure about that?